Welcome to Regina Decor Carmeli. I am your host, Robert Milan. If we're meeting for the first time, thank you for joining us on our channel. If you are a subscriber to the channel, thank you very much. And thank you to all those who have been supporting the channel over the last year. I thank you very much in helping spreading the mission. In my dealings with many people, it is apparent to many that there are many who are searching for the faith and searching to understand more about their own Catholic faith, and there are some who maybe are searching about the Catholic faith and wanting to know things. We have a few episodes that we've built over the last year in regards to Our Lady especially, and there will be more in regards to hell and heaven and various other topics which will come over the next 6 to 12 months. So thank you for being here. This is our second episode on the movie Fatima. And if you haven't actually seen the movie Fatima, I welcome you to see it in order to be able to compare what we're going to be discussing today. In the last episode, our first episode, we looked at the apparitions that occurred in 1915 as well as 1916 with regards to the Angel of Peace. And we compared and contrasted from the memoirs of Sister Lucia, which is called Sister Lucia in Her Own Words. And from that memoirs, we saw that there was quite a contrast with what is actually shown and depicted in the movie to what you actually read in the actual memoirs itself. And then we looked at the first apparition of Our Lady in 1917, which occurred on the 13th of May of that year. And also, once again, there's a striking difference between what we see in the movie and what Sister Lucia herself highlights in her memoirs. So I do welcome you to actually watch that again, watch it for the first time if you haven't seen it, and maybe if you wanted to go over it again before you look at this video as well. Today is actually the July 13th apparition in 1917, which many regard as probably the most important in terms of the content of the apparition. What Our Lady shows the children, reveals the three secrets, and also the vision of the third secret, which was revealed back in 2000 by the Vatican. Now, we're going to look at the exact interaction with the Blessed Mother of the children, and compare and contrast that once again to the movie. And I'm also going to give a bit of an analysis about some of the requests that were made by the Blessed Mother and our Lord to Sister Lucia going forward in her convent back in 1929 and again in 1931. This is a bit of a side point, but it's also very, very important to see and understand why this apparition itself singularly is the far more important, the most important apparition of all the apparitions of the 6 apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, which commenced on May the 13th. And so we're going to go through a number of slides of what Our Lady did say to Sister Lucia, and in what she had actually written in her memoirs. So I'm going to go to the slides now and we'll have a look what our Blessed Mother said to Sister Lucia. So, a few moments after arriving at the Cova da Ira, near the Holmoke, which is the Holmoke is actually the tree which Our Lady, or the little shrub tree that Our Lady had appeared to the children, not like what we see in the movie, where a large number of people were praying the rosary. We saw the flash of light once more, and a moment later Our Lady appeared on the Holmoke. "What do you want of me?" I asked. "I want you to come here on the 13th of the next month, to continue to pray the rosary every day in honour of Our Lady of the Rosary, in order to obtain peace for the world and the end of the war, because only she can help you. I would like to ask you to tell us who you are and to work a miracle so that everybody will believe that you are appearing to us. Continue to come here every month. In October, I will tell you who I am and what I want, and I will perform a miracle for all to see and believe." I then made some requests, but I cannot recall now just what they were. What I do remember is that Our Lady said it was necessary for such people to pray the rosary in order to obtain these graces during the year. She continued, "Sacrifice yourselves for sinners, and say many times, especially whenever you make some sacrifice, O Jesus, it is for love of you, for the conversion of sinners, and in reparation for the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. As Our Lady spoke these last words, she opened her hands once more, and as she had done during the 2 previous months, the rays of light seemed to penetrate the earth, and we saw, as it were, a sea of fire. Plunged in the fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, and all blacked or burnished bronze, floating about in the conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issued from within themselves, together with great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks in huge fires. Without weight or equilibrium, amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair, which horrified us and made us tremble with fear. It must have been this sight which caused me to cry out, as people say they heard me. But demons could be distinguished by their terrifying and repellent likeness to frightful and unknown animals, black and transparent, like burning coals. Terrified, and as if to plead for succour, we looked up at Our Lady, who said to us so kindly and so sadly, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. If what I say to you is done, many souls will be saved, and there will be peace. The war is going to end, but if people do not cease offending God, a worse one will break out during the pontificate of Pius XI. When you see a night illumined by an unknown light, know that it is the great sign given you by God, that He is about to punish the world for its crimes by means of war, famine, and persecutions of the Church and of the Holy Father. To prevent this, I shall come to ask for the consecration of Russia to my Immaculate Heart and the communion of reparation on the first Saturdays. If my requests are heeded, Russia will be converted and there will be peace. If not, she will spread her errors throughout the world, causing wars and persecutions of the Church. The good will be martyred. The Holy Father will have much to suffer. Various nations will be annihilated. In the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Holy Father will consecrate Russia to me, and she will be converted, and a period of peace will be granted to the world. In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved, etc. Do not tell this to anybody. Francesco, yes, you may tell him. And when you pray the rosary, say after each mystery, O my Jesus, forgive us, save us from the fire of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those who are most in need. After this, there was a moment of silence, and then I asked, Is there anything more that you want of me? No, I do not want anything more of you today. Then, as before, Our Lady began to ascend towards the east until she finally appeared in the immense distance of the firmament. Wow, it is a lot of content in that one apparition on its own in July 13. There's so much detail that the children received from the Blessed Mother. But what is striking, and when we compare the movie, that not all that detail is provided, like the consecration request. Yes, there is the vision of hell, and in some cases, the vision of hell was a little bit underwhelming. Yes, it is still frightening, no doubt, but what Sister Lucia had reported and what the children had seen was quite enormously frightening for the children. And many have actually commented that the children's whole demeanor, especially Jacinta and Francesco, had changed that after they had seen that very frightening image of hell, or the actual vision of hell. The Blessed Mother in this particular episode makes many requests. She says that in the first case, after showing hell, you have seen hell, and in a demeanor of sadness, she says, where poor souls go, for those who do not pray for them. Now, Our Lady asks for prayers for those people and sacrifice for them as well. And she adds that prayer that we say in the Holy Rosary, "O my Jesus, forgive us our sin. Save us from the fire of hell. Lead all souls into heaven, especially those in most need." And that prayer is added by the Blessed Mother, the Lady of the Rosary herself, who requested it in order to save those sinners from perdition, from the fires of hell. We also see in the movie there's a vision of the wars, and interesting that Our Lady does name the actual Pope, Pope Pius the 11th, and we know that the treaties were signed in 1938, where Pope Pius XI was actually still Pope, and then that's where many believe that the World War II did start, and there was a reported light in the sky as well at the same time. So these prophecies of Our Lady had come true, and she was quite specific on who she named. In the end of the memoirs, this, by the way, comes from her fourth memoir, which is quite a long memoir itself, and there is a part that the faith in Portugal will remain, etc. Hence, the third secret continues after that. And we see in the revealed third secret in 2000 by the Vatican, where it's a vision of a pope dressed in white, or believed to be a pope, who's climbing up a hill, and arrows and various gunshots and people dying everywhere, and the angel as well, etc. So this is the vision that is reported, supposedly had been seen by the children. But interestingly enough, that the communication from Our Lady to the children was interesting, because she says to the children that you may tell Francesco. Remember, Francesco was able to see the Blessed Mother, but couldn't communicate to the Blessed Mother. So, he could communicate with her verbally, but he couldn't hear her. So the children, Francesco had to receive all the dialogue that Our Lady spoke to Jacinta as well as Lucia through them. And so when Our Lady says, you may tell Francesco, that means there was something in addition, that Our Lady would have given the vision, and she would have given the explanation of that vision, like she did with that of the actual hell itself. She says, you have seen hell, and she also is detailed about the actual wars that would come, and she would have given, once they saw that third secret, or whatever it came to be the third secret in 2000, they would have also been given an explanation of what they saw in regards. Now, there's much conjecture. I don't believe, and many commentators don't believe, that this particular third secret translation given by the Vatican was actually the words spoken by a Blessed Mother. And I believe that the third secret is still hidden. And there is a book by Antonio Socci called The Fourth Secret of Fatima, although there's no fourth secret of Fatima, there's only 3. However, he strongly believes, from his own research and from hints and various people he's spoken to and research, that the third secret still remains hidden. There's a lot of conjecture of what it could be about. We don't know, but we're not going to conjecture here and give what it could be. And so there's a fair bit there as well. The interesting thing also is that Russia is at the heart of world peace. It's at the heart, especially in ushering the especially in ushering the devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It's very, very primarily important here that she will return, her son will return, and her will return to ask for the consecration of Russia in due time. And that actually did occur in 1929. And so that is not actually mentioned in the movie. That is actually completely overlooked and not mentioned. As I said, there are visions of wars shown to the children, the war will end, that sort of thing, but there's no mention of the consecration of Russia. It's vital. It is a vital point. It's a major error. Look, if the movie that presented by Fatima Movie that was presented, if the movie itself was about the side emotional perception of Sister Lucia without the events, then you could sort of live with that. However, the movie wanted to also show some of the events that occurred. So there's a fair bit of that's missing from the movie, and missing in terms, if you're going to do something about Fatima, you cannot be short of especially this message about the consecration of Russia. So the consecration of Russia has not happened, and I'm going to go through and explain to you very shortly what the requirements were given to Sister Lucia in her convent, and show that there were several attempts made of the consecration, but none of them fulfilled what was asked by Our Lady and our Lord. Also, the institution of devotion of the Immaculate Heart of Mary through the first 5 Saturdays was also another request that was mentioned in the 13th of July apparition, which would also be requested later on in the convent of Sister Lucia. So these warnings and key messages were very much underemphasized in the movie, and it really, really leaves you with an empty feeling, especially if you do know about Fatima, and if you do know what many researchers have said about the movie. And I welcome you to actually look at our video that we did about a year ago on Fatima, and it gives you a bit more thorough. And I'll leave in the description. I'll leave the link in the description and also in the top as well of the video. So we know that in World War II, and some 60 million people had died during this war. And because if you look at it, it's the failure of the request to heed the request of Our Lady. A war that occurred that could have been avoided. Our Lady did say, I will come to seek consecration. And if my requests are listened to, are heeded, there will be no war. Russia will be converted, there will be no war. However, if my requests are not heeded, then there will be war. And it happened. And some 60 million lives have been lost due to the lack of adherence to the request of Our Lady, of obedience. It's very important that we obey the Mother of God, who has been sent by God for a mission, for a reason. Now, as I mentioned, there has been several attempts to consecrate Russia, and I'll show these on a slide for you. The consecrations of Russia were made in several attempts by the Holy Fathers of the time. Sister Lucia reported that the Blessed Mother came to her in a convent on June the 13th of 1929 and said this is the moment when God asks one, that the Holy Father to make in union with all the bishops of the world the consecration of Russia to my Immaculate Heart. And he promises to save it by that means. So there's an intention. So just as we go back to the request by our Lord to France, the King of France, to consecrate France to the Sacred Heart and to Saint Mary Alacoque, that this would be the salvation for, if you like, for France to consecrate her to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, our Lord here is requesting that the Immaculate Heart of Mary be also placed in prominence of devotion. It's his request, not ours. It's our Lord's request. And so he promises to save it by this means. So many are the souls which the justice of God condemns for sins committed against me, that I come to ask for reparation. Sacrifice yourself for this intention and pray. The attempts that were made by several popes, so for the first one was made by Pope Pius XII in 1942. And then St. John Paul II in 1984, and again Pope Francis in 2013. The attempts to consecrate the world to the Immaculate Heart, with Pope Pius XII also specifically consecrating the people of Russia, not Russia itself, in 1952. These all are invalid. They have not met the specific requirements that the Holy Father needs to consecrate Russia in union with the bishops, and specifically name Russia. Now, so whilst the consecrations would yield certain graces, of course, God will always give us graces for our request. And our Lord returned in 1931 to say to Sister Lucia, "Make it known to my ministers that they will be dealt the same, if you like, the same blow as the King of France." And our Lord gives a warning that they will receive the same fate of the King of France, which happened 100 years later, after he did not consecrate France to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, where he was beheaded at some point. This brings us to the end of the July 13th apparition. And as I said, there is a striking difference. There's an attempt to go that way, to go to the third secret, to go to the three secrets, but not fully given the information. And so this is another shortfall of the movie, and another disappointment which I find the movie entails. Once again, this is a very, very important apparition. The July the 13th, after the actual October 13th Miracle of the Sun, which we're going to go through in our fourth and final video on the movie Fatima. This would probably be strikingly the most important, because of the messages, because of the warnings, and because of the expectations and the request made by heaven, which was later on, as I said, our Lord came back to ask for from Sister Lucia. Yes, there is still much to learn, to know, understand, investigate. After all, we all possess a God-given gift to make sense of certain things that don't appear correct. Our intellect through our prudential judgment leads us to conclude that something does not sound right. Look, thank you for joining us in this episode, and I hope you have enjoyed this comparison of the actual Fatima movie with regards to the memoirs of Sister Lucia. In our next episode, which will be episode 3, where the children are actually imprisoned for a short time, which didn't actually appear on August the 13th, and also the September 13th apparition, which was a short one as well. And a final video, which will be our fourth video, which will be on the October Miracle of the Sun. Tell us what you thought of that particular episode of the movie, and how you understand Fatima. Has this actually enhanced your understanding of Fatima itself? And maybe you didn't know. Maybe you didn't know that this is the fourth memoir did exist, and this is what Sister Lucia had written about the events of the 13th of July. So I'd like to hear your point of view in the actual comments section. Thank you. Pass on this message, like and share, and subscribe if you haven't done so. God be with you.